There's a lot of stuff going on with Major League Baseball these days. Owners and players are fighting over salaries and money and whether or not there's going to be a season and how many games and how to play it and on and on and on. But in the background this week, something else is happening that is a huge, huge story. Thousands of minor league players are being cut while the major league teams try to save some money. We're going to dive down that rabbit hole. There are lots of things that are happening in the world of sports these days. There are cuts, there are decisions, there are leagues trying to come back. And then there's Major League Baseball. We learned this week that thousands, hundreds, probably thousands of minor league players are being released from their contracts, are being cut. I guess Steve Milton, presumably so that major league teams save money, obviously, but also I would think this is going to throw a huge wrench, if baseball can come back, into what the minor leagues look like going forward.
Well, it was already now, and a lot of the stories, if you look at it from the minor league level, from the people in the minor league, has said, look, this immediate part is a COVID thing, but really this is a longer term thing. It goes back to Major League Baseball basically saying they're going to cut a quarter of the minor league teams because they want a little more control. And we can get into that a little later in the discussion. But baseball has carried. Baseball and hockey are different than the football and basketball, because football and basketball don't have to pay for their minor leagues. That's the NCAA. They do all the work for them. They do all the development for them. They get the players a little younger now than they used to, but they're still developed. They play a major league kind of game, where baseball has always had to develop their players, and hockey as well. Both leagues are finding, hockey's finding that they need more development. Baseball is finding they maybe don't need as much. And so that dovetails with the cost cutting as well. So this is going to be really, really difficult. They already cut the major league draft down, right? So to cut the number of rounds down. So that meant that a whole bunch of players were going to be sitting there as basically free agents anyways, even if minor league seasons got going. So it's a real mess. It really messes with part of the culture of America, not so much here, but of the United States. Really messes with that, because minor league baseball is part of the fabric of a great number of towns.
Rick, does this bother you, or is this just a reality of, hey, this is where sports is right now, and if you're not having any income, we can't pay you?
Yeah, listen, I understand what Major League Baseball is doing in terms of saving a penny. But let's face it, the writing has been on the wall for several years now that Major League Baseball wanted to trim the number of minor league baseball teams, minor league baseball leagues. Steve mentioned the draft. It's gone from 40 rounds down to 5 rounds. There are literally thousands of players that are not going to be drafted and will be free agents, and then will not have a team to go through. So yes, it's Major League Baseball saving some money, but this is really a power play in terms of, I think Major League Baseball wants a lot more control of the developmental players or the prospects that are coming up to the major league teams. Do they really need players in single A or in double A? Can we just have a triple A system, similar to what hockey has with the American Hockey League? And I know there's the ECHL as well, but I think baseball wants to trim the number of developmental spots or positions that players occupy.
Look, I don't want to see anybody lose their job, and certainly these are tough times, and the minor league players aren't making a lot of money. So, it's even probably tougher for them. But am I alone in thinking that all along, and you guys have touched on it, baseball has had way too many people in the system? A 50-round draft. I know that you find an Albert Pujols or a Mike Piazza every decade, but 99% of the guys who get drafted are never going to see the major leagues. We've got a million teams that, to me, the whole thing, I don't want to see lost jobs, but the whole thing has seemed so flabby all along that I'm not sure this is going to do anything to hurt the final major league product too much. It'll hurt some people, but it'll hurt the product.
Well, I think that's what I was saying, that league and that the NHL's found they need to develop more, but they don't necessarily need as many players, right? What they need is more money on development in the AHL, or more focus on it, because you got to have those younger players that are cheap. Baseball doesn't have a salary cap, but they want to impose an internal one in this way, right? This is one way they can do it. And having complete control over those players, having a glut of players creates, of course, a buyer's market, not a seller's market, if you want to look at it as not trustworthy of Major League Baseball. And of course, all those years covering it, I don't look at Major League Baseball as very trustworthy when it comes to most things. But there is a hard, cold economic fact here, and that is related to COVID, and that minor league baseball is based on, much as say the Bulldogs are, on a few good nights, right? You got to forget about those Tuesday nights in November if you're the Bulldogs, and concentrate on the kids' days and the big rivalry games with the Leafs farm teams and those kinds of things. And make sure you this was back when they were junior team, of course, but or when they were an AHL team. But the big rivalries now and those kinds of things, they go for the big score a few times a year, and that's what happens in minor league baseball too. Well, if you've got crowd distancing, and you've got even if you don't have crowd distancing in some of those less progressive states, people are still going to be a little scared to go, and every dollar counts at that level. I think this is as much about the survival of the franchises beyond the 40 that we're going to get cut, the 40 that we're going to get cut anyways from tied to Major League Baseball. I think it's and it's beyond the players. It's more about the franchises, because the players right now are going to be hurt, but this could mean players hurt basically forever. I don't disagree with you that there was a lot of fat on the bone here, and baseball players are finding now. I mean, if you can promise a bonus baby that he gets his first play in the major leagues within 3 years, you can do that down the line a bit too. And who's going to notice necessarily the slight decline in the quality? There will be. I mean, if you don't get some of that fundamental coaching, there will be a decline of that.
And you know what? It does make perfect financial sense. You're, as you said, Steve, you're trimming the fat. You're taking a lot of positions out of the mix. And let's face it, minor league baseball players don't make a whole lot of money. I think it's $1,000 a week, and they get $25 for meals and the riding the buses. So it's not as glorious at all as it is in the show. But the fact of the matter is, it's still tearing at the fabric of what I think is still known as America's pastime.
Yeah.
But when you think of minor league ball, you think of, at least in these parts, the Buffalo Bisons or the Durham Bulls, made famous in the movie Bull Durham. The fabric of Americana, going to that minor league ballpark and chomping on a hot dog and some Cracker Jacks and just having a great time with a couple of other 100 people around you. Minor league baseball is now going to lose that, and those small communities, in large part, that rally around those teams are going to lose that as well.
Maybe they're going to lose that. Maybe. Because
Maybe.
I think there is a great likelihood you will see some independent leagues pop up with these players
Absolutely.
who are now available. And this will now serve as a giant free agent market. So if a player emerges, you can go and you'll still have scouts going and checking these, just like you had scouts doing college and high school games. The thing that I also wonder about, though, guys, is this is, I believe this is intended to be a cost-saving measure. Is how much cost is it going to save? It's going to save some travel and per diem and that thing, which is really not very much. But if you now reduce the draft to 5 rounds from 50, and if you now have much fewer teams, are the minor league players who get drafted not going to say, we have a new position of even better strength, we are going to demand higher signing bonuses and higher draft bonuses and all those things? I know it will save some money. I'm not sure it's going to save as much perhaps as Major League Baseball initially thinks.
Well, on the labor side of it, that specific mention there when you say, well, we're going to hold out, the top guys are already doing that, and it's why they, why teams are sort of slotting players into certain areas. But
I'm talking around 3 and 4 and 5 now, Steve. They now have more leverage because there's a lot fewer guys behind them.
Well, yeah, there may be, but a lot of guys are still going to play baseball. And I'll tell you who this does strengthen down the road: college ball, right?
Because they could become the same as football or basketball.
18-year-old players are going to say, "Look, there's no Pioneer League. Are they going to really use me in high level A, full season A? Probably."
Or they're not even going to be drafted.
Or they're not going to draft me.
Go to college.
I'm not. So, and a lot of players get drafted 3 times, right? There's 3 levels of eligibility there. It's 2 for sure at 18 years old, and another in your first time of college, and sometimes the second time in college. And so I see major if the colleges can put it all together, they're going to have stronger programs here, because they're going to have guys. More 18-year-olds are going to go. B, more second and third and fourth year players are going to stay, because they aren't going to get drafted. They're not going to have the option. There's going to look, the basic economic factor when it comes to labor here is supply and demand. Right, so there might be a little bit of a bump at the top. I don't think so, but down below that, but below those first 5, and that's only 5 guys per team. And how many do you need in a certain year? You need a ton. So even if you cut out a quarter of your teams, you need some players. So I think the law of supply and demand goes there. The costs are generally related to operating the teams and what baseball puts into, the trainers and the coaches and all those kind of thing. That's where a lot of the cost savings will come. Travel.
I think what baseball should do is just have a AAA system, just like the American Hockey League is to the National Hockey League, and have that one main minor league team. And if you need, because of a desperation or injury or whatever, there are a glut of free agents out there that you can still tap into that will probably be playing in the international or in the independent system, maybe even in the international leagues. And you can look to Japan and strike some agreements overseas.
I would add one more to that. Yeah, I would add one more to that, because I think that there is something for ball players when you're coming, just when you're drafted. I don't think you have to necessarily go right to AAA, but like, I don't want to sound cold or whatever, but I think that it has been fat, and I think that you can do this. The thing, though, is going to be, what's this going to do? There are a lot of towns, and Steve alluded to it. There are a lot of towns, Rick alluded to it, a lot of small minor league towns that have lived and died with those teams. You may get 2,000 people or 5,000 people. It's going to impact them. Does it impact those people in the heartland enough that they say, screw it, I'm no longer a fan of that team or of baseball, I'll find something else to do? Or do they just now turn on their TV and watch the games that they might have watched anyway?
Well, it depends on whether your team gets mixed or not.
It's whacked, right?
Yeah, gets whacked. And there's something to be said for you being part of. I mean, we watched who did we watch here that made it all the way from the Hamilton when they were the Pony League team, made it all the way into the
Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan made it all the way
the
up
Cardinals.
there. Yeah, so a lot of people there. I mean, this had been Cardinal territory, a hidden Cardinal territory for older people for a long, long time, going way back to the original Pony League in the 40s and 50s. So there's something to be said for that. And it's hard to prove a negative. So we don't know what the removal of that would do if you just had a team, and okay, maybe somebody comes out of there and becomes, and it'll happen. There's no doubt about it, because you're going to actually, those teams are going to play a better level of ball if they join a independent league. If they form their own independent league, they'll actually play a better level of ball. I mean, the Intercounty League, for instance, is much better than some of the levels of ball that are certainly better than short rookie season. And you might see a player who's young there develop against experienced pitchers, as we used to see in the Intercounty League many years ago.
Steve, the Hamilton Cardinals, as an example, or Rick, they potentially could be loving this, because you may suddenly have all kinds of players with no place to play who are really high quality players. And, this league has forever, at least for the last 25 years, been trying to find its niche in the sports market to get people to come out and watch. This could be it.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, Intercounty League is competitive right now, and it could be even better if they do or are able to get some more Americans to play up here, or Canadians who have gone down south to ply their trade and try to make it to the major leagues. They might come back to this area. But I think the big winner in all this is going to be the NCAA system. Whether it's the powerhouse college baseball teams or those who are trying to make a name for themselves, they're going to have a lot more players to choose from and coerce and entice to come to their programs. I think this is an opportunity for NCAA baseball to not necessarily get to where basketball and football is, because that might not be attainable, at least in the foreseeable future. But I think sometime down the road, if they get enough stars in their system, because Major League Baseball has shunned minor leagues associations, I think college ball could make a lot of noise.
Which is good for Major League Baseball. That was my point earlier. Because the players will be playing against better players. So they might be more AA ready, AAA ready than they are now. I agreed with Radley's earlier point that you need to keep AA. And the reason is you need 2 stages in baseball. You need a curveball league where you sort players out, right? And then you need sort of a maturity type of league where you sort players. And it's alternated between AA and AAA. There was a time close to my last years in baseball, so let's say early 2000s, that where AA had actually taken over as the real development place. And AAA was where a guy where you put down your 26th, 27th, 28th player and let them play. Well, it's changed around again, but it's somewhere in there you got to have the curveball league. By that, for people that don't know, what I mean is that's the differentiation point for a hitter. Can you hit
among the other places are other people that this is going to hurt? And I'll say this. There are a lot of Canadians right now that go down to the States to play NCAA ball. And all those people who sign or would have been drafted and maybe signed contracts in the minors are now staying in the NCAA, and all the American kids that have been playing baseball 12 months a year are suddenly now inspired to stay in the NCAA. I think there's an awful lot of Canadian baseball players, young kids, that are going to find themselves without a spot down in the States, which could help Canadian baseball. Who knows? It could help Canadian university baseball. It could,
Yeah.
weird way, help a lot of other people.
It'll take years for that to sort out, but I think immediately what you're going to see, where it's going to hit, is in the Caribbean League, Caribbean players.
A lot of places, yeah,
16,
for sure.
17 years old. Where do they go? They go to the short season rookie league. I mean, you look at the rosters there, because there's a cultural thing they've got to work on. So they get the younger. I mean, those kids are younger, right? So I think that's where you're going to see the biggest impact immediately, and that was going to happen before COVID, and it's really going to happen now.
We want you to subscribe down below. You can see the subscription button, see the notification button. If you're wondering, wait a second, aren't there usually 4 of you, by the way? Bubba had business today. We haven't forgotten about Bubba. We didn't cut him off. He's not fired. It's clear. He'll be back next time. Folks, thanks for watching. Be in touch with us. Our Twitter handles are up on the screen. We'd love to hear from you. We'll talk to you next time.